Okay, the FA Cup fifth round is just 2 weeks away. Let's go through the upcoming FA Cup ties. The games will take place between February 28th, which is the Friday, and Monday, March the 3rd. So it's a 4-day FA Cup weekend. We have 4 games on March the 1st, 2 on March the 2nd, and 1 each on February the 28th and March the 3rd. So there's a couple of evening kickoffs in there, which is not ideal, but it's not as bad as the last round or the third round when we had Tuesday night games kicking off at 8 p.m. So Aston Villa Cardiff City is the first FA Cup tie of the weekend, of the round. Villa are favourites for me. Cardiff won't make it easy for Villa, but Villa at home easily dispatched Tottenham in the last round. Should have won by 6 or 7, not 2-1, but my match review of that is up on the channel. That's the one area I think with Villa that they could and should be better, is their finishing a little bit. 75% of the pitch, they were brilliant. That final little bit of the pitch, that final 25%, a little bit wasteful in front of goal, but they kept creating chances from the get-go. They scored early on. If they can start in the same vein with the same energy they did against Spurs, Cardiff, they've got to hang in there. For the first 20 minutes is crucial in this one, but Villa are favourites for me, and this is a competition they've got to target. I know they're in Europe still, but they've got to target the FA Cup and really go for this as a gateway back into Europe, because they're not guaranteed to obviously win the Champions League. So this is a good way for them to focus on another cup competition, and strong favourites for this one. This could be Villa's year. There's a big sides have dropped out. There's a couple of teams that really could take advantage of some of the other big Premier League clubs having already been knocked out in the third and fourth round. Villa, I think they're definitely favourites for this one. Cardiff won't make it easy. Let's be honest. Cardiff won't make it easy. It won't be the easiest game. I mean, it's a Championship side. They're going to be physical. They're going to grind the midfield area. Set pieces are going to be crucial with Villa with a few defensive injuries. Okay, that could be another weakness. So set plays in the midfield battle are going to be crucial. The first 20 minutes is going to be crucial. If Villa keep their discipline and play the way they did for a large portion of the game against Spurs, all they've got to work on is their finishing and staying disciplined when Cardiff are going to be niggly. They're going to be battling in that midfield. They're going to try and disrupt them. They're going to try and get cheap fouls and free kicks and set plays. So if Villa can stay calm, play their way, I can't see anything but a Villa win, but upsets happen for a reason. So it will be also interesting to see how many changes Unai Emery makes to the starting lineup as well, how he rotates his squad. But that's the Villa-Cardiff game. For me, Villa favourites. On Saturday, March the 1st, one of the lunchtime kickoffs is Crystal Palace-Millwall. This is going to be a spicy encounter. Selhurst Park is going to be a cauldron, which is an old school ground, so the atmosphere at Selhurst Park is going to be tasty. I don't know, it's 2 mid-table clubs in their respective leagues really going at it. I think this could be a scrappy game, to be honest. It could be a proper cup tie with some fierce challenges going in, no quarter given. A scrappy game I think suits Millwall a little bit more. Palace want to play a bit. So again, very similar to Villa Cardiff. If Palace can get control in the first 20 minutes and take an early lead, it makes things easier for them. But at the same time, these are local rivals. They don't like each other. The fan bases don't like each other. And that needs to be drilled into the players. This is going to be a tasty encounter. There's going to be no quarter given here. I will give it... This is a hard one to call, even though they're in different divisions, because of the local rivalry as it is. And they have met recently in the FA Cup at a similar stage a couple of seasons ago. This could be a really, really hotly contested encounter. But this is a great chance for Palace, much like Villa, to potentially get back to the final where they haven't been for a long time, win the FA Cup. They're still searching for that first piece of major silverware. This is an opportunity for them, as I say. Many big-name clubs, Liverpool and Arsenal, for example, are out. The highest-ranked team left in the competition is Forest. So let that sink in, that the highest-ranked team left in this year's FA Cup is Nottingham Forest. Who would have had money on that at the start of the season? So, again, it's going to be a tasty one. Palace need to take advantage of the opportunity that's come their way with other big-name clubs having fallen by the wayside at this point. Millwall, as I say, much like Cardiff, won't make it easy, and it's going to be a feisty one, the midfield battle. And discipline's going to be key, because set plays and yellows and reds and anything like that, discipline's going to be key. So Millwall will definitely try and disrupt Palace, try and get a rise out of the players, get under their skin. They need to stay calm and play their natural game. Millwall are going to try and make it scrappy. So if Millwall make it scrappy and Palace fall into that trap, Millwall could win, but Palace are favourites for that one. Preston, North End, Burnley. Burnley are favourites because I'm just going on league form in the Championship. Again, another local derby. So whoever made the draw on Monday night has pulled out of the hat some really interesting matchups. Burnley, Preston. Preston at home. Deepdale. It's a fantastic stadium. I like Deepdale as a stadium. I have to give this to Burnley. Their defence, it doesn't give up a lot of goals. They've had a lot of clean sheets this season. Preston, North End are just not at the same level as Burnley, even though they're in the same division. I think Burnley will have too much for Preston, I'm sorry to say. But it will be a tasty encounter. It is a local derby. It is another lunchtime kickoff. So we'll see how that plays into things, the early kickoff. Burnley don't have far to travel to Preston. But again, these early kickoffs can throw up some weird kind of games, kind of matches, because the preparation... You're used to your normal 3 or 5:45 kickoffs, for example, 5:30 kickoffs. For the most part, the late evening kickoffs like 7:45, 8 p.m. Some of the clubs that play in Europe regularly, like Villa have this season, that doesn't bother them so much. But when you've got these lunchtime kickoffs, it can throw home teams off, away teams off. But it's not far to travel for Burnley. This is going to be an interesting one. But for me, Burnley are favourites. I do think it will be done in 90 minutes. It will be a tasty encounter, but Burnley, I think, will have too much for Preston. Bournemouth Wolves is a later kickoff on. I think it's a 3 o'clock kickoff on March the 1st on the Saturday. For me, Bournemouth are favourites going into this. I think they're just, again, when you've got two teams in the same division, you just look how they're playing, and I think Bournemouth will have far too much for Wolves. Wolves, I think they're more focused on Premier League survival. They got a morale-boosting win against Villa in the league a couple of weeks ago. They got a morale-boosting win against Blackburn in the last round just to give them a bit of confidence. But they really need to focus on league survival. Bournemouth, while they're flirting with the European places and they're playing really well this season, again, another underrated side, underrate them at your peril, this is a good opportunity for Bournemouth to have a crack at the FA Cup. Again, other big name clubs in the Premier League have fallen by the wayside. These are one of the lesser clubs in the Premier League. They have a very good chance of going all the way to the final, which will be a fantastic story if that happens. But they've got goals in this side. Wolves, I'm just not sold on Wolves defensively. They did give up a lot of opportunities against Blackburn in the last round. I think Bournemouth will have too much for them. Bournemouth at home have a good record. They can score goals as well. They've got goals in this Bournemouth side, whereas Wolves, they're stop-start in the league. They get a good win here, then they get a couple of bad defeats, then a draw, then a win, and it's just there's no consistency with Wolves with stringing wins together. Whereas Bournemouth, they don't let a defeat fluster them. They bounce back pretty quick, and their record this season has been very, very good. And there's a reason why they're flirting with Europe and Wolves are flirting with relegation. So if I'm going to predict anything, I think Bournemouth are the favourites for this one. I think Bournemouth will be winners over Wolves. But again, FA Cup, anything can happen. But familiarity breeds contempt a little bit, and that could be an interesting one. Man City Plymouth is the other game on March the 1st on the Saturday. Plymouth shocked Liverpool in the last round, so the league leaders are knocked out. Now they've got the last year's champions to contend with, and I wasn't sold and confident with Man City in the last round. They really laboured against Leyton Orient. So it's going to be interesting to see what Pep Guardiola does with his squad selection and rotation. De Bruyne got them out of the hole with his winning goal against Orient. They were very laboured, very sloppy, and you can definitely see confidence is an issue with this City side. And then they back up the laboured win against Orient with a bad defeat against Real Madrid. So Plymouth Argyle, if they do what Liverpool did and underestimate them and just don't get at them at the races early on, yeah, it could be an interesting one. Plymouth will focus on the set plays, they'll focus on the physicality. They weren't expected to beat Liverpool when they did. And it's a morale boosting win they got against Liverpool. And yeah, they're in relegation scrap in the Championship. But a couple of wins and they're out the bottom three in the Championship. So if they can get under the skin of Man City, disrupt them, just do what Orient did. Just don't let Man City settle. They're not going to be bothered if they don't have the ball at Plymouth. They're not. These players won't be bothered without the ball. It's about keeping organised, keeping structured, and disrupting the passing lanes, getting those tackles in, defending in units. Leyton Orient did that very well. They disrupted Man City. They made it uncomfortable, and Man City looked very vulnerable on the counter attack, very vulnerable, and they did give up a fair few opportunities against Leyton Orient. They did not look comfortable defensively. So Man City are vulnerable. There's a potential upset there. Potential upset, honestly. And I would say the Newcastle-Brighton game, I think, will be the one that's most likely to go to penalties. That's on Sunday, March the 2nd. I think that one for me is the one most likely to go the whole hog, 90 minutes extra time and penalties, because I think both sides are pretty evenly matched. I would slightly say Newcastle slightly edge it. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how both sides manage their squad rotation. I know Newcastle, they've got that one eye on the League Cup final to consider. So squad rotation could be interesting, the strength of lineups put out, but I would expect both sides to put out full strength lineups. Full strength available lineups. I know there's some injuries with players, but I would expect Newcastle and Brighton to put out their strongest possible lineups that they can, injuries and suspensions notwithstanding. And I think it's going to be a tasty one. I really do. Both sides can score goals. Newcastle's record under Eddie Howe this season is fantastic. I will admit that, and you can definitely see the team is better now that Eddie Howe's there than Steve Bruce. Newcastle, I think, would be slight favourites, but I can see Brighton really sticking at this. Brighton have a good system as well. They're good on the counter-attack. They can pass it around a bit. Both sides can play the passing style, counter-attack style, run with the ball. This is a proper, real opportunity for both sides. Newcastle, if they really take the FA Cup seriously, they could potentially do a cup double this year. I mean, they've got a great opportunity with the League Cup final, a real good opportunity with the League Cup final, and it's their second League Cup final in 3 seasons. So Eddie Howe is doing something right with this Newcastle side, and they're having a fantastic season again. And I think this season, better than last season, the squad management's been better as well by Eddie Howe. I think he's learnt a few lessons that I think he got wrong last season. Brighton, they're flirting with Europe as well, and they beat Chelsea in the last round. You know, then they shouldn't be discounted away from home. Being away from home won't bother Brighton. But here's the thing: it's a Sunday kickoff, and it's Brighton to Newcastle's one of the longest away days in the Premier League, after Bournemouth Newcastle. So it's a very long trek from the south coast to the northeast, and could that go in Newcastle's favour, that the Brighton team have to travel up the night before, the fans, could that go in their favour? As I say, these earlier kick-off times, these lunchtime kick-offs can be very disruptive for pre-match prep, and with Brighton having to travel up the day before, they would do. There'd be no other way they could feasibly do it, where they could do a full pre-match prep and be fully at the races. That could go in Newcastle's favour as well. You're waiting to have to travel for many hours. Man United Fulham is the other game on the Sunday. Fulham for me are favourites, even though they're away from home. Man United just look vulnerable, much like Man City do. They just don't look convincing to me. I know Ruben Amorim, he's having a rude awakening to the Premier League, and it hasn't been. I mean, look, Ruben Amorim, I think he's a good manager. Success at Sporting Lisbon will tell you that, but I think he needs time to really fix the issues with this side. I think they need to be more focused on trying to improve their league position. I know they're the defending champions, and I know they've won trophies in back-to-back seasons, but Fulham look dangerous. Fulham have something about them that they didn't have in previous seasons. I think they're much more comfortable in the Premier League now again. They're more stable in the Premier League now again. They're not concerned about being in a relegation fight. This is Fulham's opportunity for silverware, and Man United are vulnerable. There is no two ways about this. Man United are vulnerable. They're struggling in the league. They're misfiring. They've had some bad defeats, and at home they have lost at home badly this season. Bournemouth will tell you that. Brighton will tell you that. Some other clubs have really put some embarrassing defeats on Man United at home this season. The crowd can turn. Old Trafford, the crowd can turn against the team. They have been booed off the pitch more than once. If Fulham can start making things uncomfortable and take an early lead or lead at half time, see how the crowd responds. If the crowd starts turning on this Man United side, Fulham, I think, will win. And I think the first 20-25 minutes, if Fulham can get 1-0, maybe 2-0 up, if Fulham are leading at half time, the crowd could potentially turn because the crowd doesn't have. The fan base is getting frustrated. They're getting frustrated with players underperforming. They're getting frustrated with Ineos and the Glaziers, the ownership. There's a lot of frustration within the fan base of what the club is run, the performances on the pitch, the players not performing to their salaries. They will turn on this team. And so I think Fulham are favourites. That years past, it'd be Man United favourites, Fulham the underdogs. No, not anymore. I think Man United are in a position now where they are vulnerable and very vulnerable to an upset. It's not really an upset when Fulham are above them in the league, is it? It can't be an upset. If Man United win, that's an upset at this point because on league form, Fulham are better. On league form, Fulham are better. Man United are really just they're like stuck in mud. While their league position ironically hasn't changed since Ruben Amorim took over, their form is still pretty appalling. It just so happens there's teams below them in the league whose form is worse. Now the final tie of the round is on the Monday night on the March 3rd. Nottingham Forest Ipswich Town. Now who would have had Nottingham Forest as the highest ranked team left in the competition by the 5th round stage? They sit 3rd in the Premier League. Exeter gave them a test in the last round, but this Forest side, the way they play, they just have fun. They are really exciting to watch on the counter attack. None of this slow possession based. It's all done quickly. Everything's done with pace, quickly, and intensity. Ipswich are obviously having their first season back in the Premier League. It has been tough for them. It's been a bit of a grind, but Ipswich have got a bit about them that they're sticking at it. They're not no hopers, but they've got. What strength lineup will Ipswich put out? Ipswich will want to try and get a morale boosting win, obviously, just to give them some confidence. But I think Forest will have too much for Ipswich. If Ipswich try and overextend themselves, they're going to open themselves up and they're going to get slaughtered because Forest on the counter attack are terrifying. Forest like counter attacking. Forest would be happy to have Ipswich have all the ball and then hit them on the counter attack. Honestly, so Ipswich may actually be better suited to letting Forest have the ball a little bit and make it scrappy because if Nottingham Forest sit back and just let Ipswich have 2/3 of the field, that suits Forest. They just want to counter-attack. They want to have the ball break down in a congested area and attack quickly. Ipswich will want to make it scrappy. Ipswich probably won't want a lot of the ball, ironically. Neither side basically wants the ball in this game. But I think Forest will have just too much for Ipswich. I think they're more confident. They're 3rd in the league. And again, prime opportunity for Nottingham Forest. With some of the other clubs still in the FA Cup have got European commitments like Villa and City. This is a prime opportunity for Forest to go, we can target this competition. We're confident, we're in form, we fear no one, we can score goals. But it depends on what the opposition does in this one. And Ipswich probably don't want a lot of the ball. Ipswich probably want to make this a scrappy stop-start affair, as I say, Forest want to counter-attack. So it's going to be interesting to see who really adapts their style of play and gains control of the game. But that's going to be a fun one, a bit of an enigma. How are the teams going to set up? How's Nuno going to set up? His Forest side, for example. How's he going to? Because they had to change their style of play against Exeter, and it made it difficult for them. It went to penalties, so that could be an interesting one. But Ipswich depends on the strength of the lineup Ipswich put out. Forest will be targeting this one as well, much like Villa, much like Palace, much like Bournemouth. This is a prime opportunity to win some silverware this season, and it's been a long time since Forest and Villa have won silverware. Bournemouth have never won anything. Palace have a long time since they've been into the FA Cup final. So this is a prime opportunity for some of these Premier League clubs that at the start of the season no one really expected to be in contention for silverware, especially Forest. Bournemouth been a bit of a slow burner, but Forest they were in a relegation battle last season. This season they've been fantastic. So nothing was expected of Forest this season. They're defying expectations and the way they play. For me, I think Forest potentially are the favourites for the FA Cup. As things currently stand, looking at league form, how they play, the amount of goals they got in the side, the pace with their attacks, the way they just attack at pace. It could be a fun one. But there we go. There's the 5th round preview. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below. I don't really make predictions on scores, but I can see a couple of these going to penalties potentially. I can see a couple of feisty encounters. Crystal Palace Millwall stands out to me as a real. That could get nasty. I honestly believe that. Preston North End Burnley could get a bit tasty as well. So the two early kickoffs on the Saturday, March the 1st. I think there's some potential for a lot of goals. A lot of goals. And there's potential for a couple of upsets. Especially Plymouth Man City. Man City look vulnerable. They struggled very badly against Leyton Orient. So we shall see what happens. But for me for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll have some more content for all you guys and girls very, very soon.